to the channel, everyone. I'm Teresa, and I'm going to give folks just a few moments here to get in here before we get started. Let's see. All right, just making sure we were good to go and messages coming through. Good evening, everyone. So glad that you joined me. Welcome. If this is your first time to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, what's up, soul family? Welcome back. I am so happy to be here this evening. I wasn't sure whether I was going to come in or not because I was still having some memory issues, but I think I got that worked out. So that's a good thing. And I'm not entirely sure where we're going tonight. Again, last night I went live and we just kind of let it do its thing. We took it easy, and I thought, you know what? That it is what it is. I can pull cards for the collective, or we can just chop it up. Whatever works for you, I'm down for it too. So yeah, just let me know where we're going today. Although I pull some different decks aside, and I know we want to look at them for a few messages. If love comes out again, that's fine. Yesterday, I thought we were going to do a love reading, but it became something altogether different, and that's fine too. Because, hey, we would when the collective needs something, you need what you need, and ain't nobody need to hear about no twin flame stuff yesterday. We had other needs in the house that took precedence, so hey, it is what it is. I'm glad we went where we went. Hang on one second. Let me see. I should have done this before I got going. My bad. I'm sorry, y'all. I just feel weird reading without candles. Crazy part is, I'm running so low on candles, I'm gonna actually be forced to make some candles here. Which, if that's something that would interest you all, let me know. I am Reiki attuned, and I do like moon, stuff with the moon. And I was considering doing some full moon candles where I purify the crystals and meditate with those stones under the full moon, and then make Reiki infused candles for like healing and protection and things like that. Let me know if that's something that interests y'all. Hello. Hey warrior, good to see you back. Hi, Oliver. How are you? Let me see who all we got going on here. I see, Warrior. I'm so happy that you're back. And Lena Ball, welcome. And I'm so thank you for the like. Absolutely. Y'all want to start out? That purple is purple. I am so much a purple girl, even before purple became a thing. Like I say before, I understood the spiritual significance of purple. I've always been a purple girl. So yeah, now I just lean into it. I don't even try to fight it no more. I used to have a closet full of black and gray, and now I probably have more purple in my closet than most people. But hey, it is what it is. So. Anywho, oh, one of the things that I was kind of excited about when I was setting up some of the decks for today, I put some of the ones back I had yesterday, and I grabbed some different ones because I just wanted to see what was going on. And I grabbed the healing spirits, and as I was just shuffling through, I didn't call myself pulling anything. I was just kind of pre-shuffling the decks and cleansing them and getting set up for it. But one card shot out, and this one I was like, I can't put this back because this is for somebody that's going to be on this live stream tonight. Spirit wants you to know right now, you have the ability to affect your own destiny, which we all do. But most people do it haphazardly and by mistake, by default. As conscious creators, the more you, like I said, what's that they say on TV, the more you know, we get to the point where we can do it by design. You have that ability. You do. You look. So yeah, let's get on in here and see if we can pull some cards until the topic comes up, and then of course, you said, can I repeat that again? Sure. You have the ability to affect your own destiny. Yesterday we talked about being conscious creators, but I'm gonna I'm gonna remind you what Yeshua told you, just in case you forgot. Did I not tell you ye are gods? That came from the mouth of the master. I didn't make that up. So he done already told us 2,000 years ago we have the ability to affect our own destiny. We just get so beat down with the programming and all of the people telling us we dirty and we unworthy and we sinful and we headed for hell and destruction and all that crap they plapped on our heads till we forget that we have the ability to affect our own destiny. Have you ever noticed or been in a situation where you were up against something? Let's say, I don't know, say something that you wanted, a job or a situation or something that you want to have happen. Now, granted, I understand it don't always go the way you want it to either. Been there, done that. I'm not telling you I'm some magical wizard that everything I turn my attention to instantly happens, because we put a lot of radio interference in our own ways. Hey, B drums, not the blood of Jesus, baby, the life of Yeshua. We've been told to look upon the blood of Jesus because that is high magic. The Yahwehistic program of doing things has all of humanity chasing black magic and blood rituals because that's truthfully a generational curse upon Yeshua's line and upon ours if we turn around and continue to pant after the blood of Jesus. No. Blood sacrifice is some of Yahweh's mess. Yeah, exactly. No, God is not magic. And what they call the ones that call down for the blood of Jesus, that's not God. That's a dragon. That's a whole different conversation, though. I don't want to get too deep and run off the good folks too early in the live stream. But yeah, no. But he told us that greater things than he's done will we do. He said that. If the world seems turbulent around you, stop. Because it's in the silence that you're going to hear the answers and find the way forward. Spirit healers and helpers are here with you. And don't fear change, embrace it and grow. I love this deck. That's nice. But that's enough of that. We're not going to pull no more up out of that one. I do want to see, let me see what we got over here. No, I don't think the blood of Jesus is bad. I've talked about this in one of my videos, and I can't remember the exact name of the title of it. But here's the thing, when you go back and look at the Gospels, the four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, if you start studying biblical history, you will come to understand that the only one of the so-called apostles that wrote those gospels, the only one that possibly had any actual connection with Jesus was John. Matthew, Mark, and Luke never met Yeshua at all. Never ever. Hi, Frank. I'm not sure who Sasuke is, but whatever. If you coming in here to troll, you can go on about your business. Just go, because we're here to learn. We're not here to clown, okay? Really. It's like, seriously. Hi, Farad. Um, but if you look at Matthew, Mark, and Luke, the way they write the story of Yeshua, you can tell it's very scripted. They talk about the same thing. It's supposed to be three different eyewitness accounts from three different apostles, supposedly. But they talk about the same stuff verbatim 100 years after it actually happened. That stuff that in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, those books were published almost 100 years after Yeshua was supposedly executed. And they talk about the same exact stuff. And the one gospel that does not talk about the Last Supper and the crucifixion and all that other stuff, they knew he was going to die. Well, plead it somewhere else, because I'm telling you, and if every time you plead the blood of Jesus, you are enacting a high, dark magic blood ritual over Yeshua HaMashiach, and you are cursing yourself and your bloodline to continue following the dragon. The entire time that Yeshua was on this earth, he kept telling the Jews, you do not know my father, you worship your father, the devil. Please get to know the God that you bow to, because he's not who you think he is. Yahweh does never had humanity's good interest at heart. That's one of the reasons 3/4 of the world been following Yahweh for 2,000 years, and still war, violence, misogyny, poverty, starvation, everything. If Jews follow him under the name of Yahweh, Christians follow him under the name of Jehovah, Muslims follow him under the name of Allah. So if they all worship in the same God, we should have peace and prosperity here on this planet, and we got anything but, because Yahweh ain't what people think he is. Never has been. Yahweh is a dragon. Do what? Oh yeah, pretty much. She gonna get kicked out. He, she, whatever. I'm just trying to give them something to go think about before they leave in their ignorance. But they're not gonna come here and troll for much longer. Now, especially since we got people coming on in the live, we don't need that. I, like I say, I was taught to read from the Bible by the age of 3. I've been reading the Bible my whole life, been steeped in Christianity my whole life, until Yeshua finally opened my eyes and set me free. No, Yahweh said, you shall have no other gods before you. Go to Fifth Kind and Paul Wallace. He just finished. I watched something today about that. The Jews were not always monotheistic. They were henotheistic, meaning they chose one out of many Elohim to serve, but they chose the wrong one. Hi, Nicole, and thank you so much. Hi, Charles. Thank you for coming in, Nicole. Let me see. I thought there she is, unique goddess. Hey, hey, sis. What's up? What's up? What's up? And Jewel, hi, or Obiora. I'm sorry. Hi, nice to meet you. And welcome on in. Welcome, welcome. Yeah, we can talk about this a little bit, because honestly, I'm assuming and hoping that B Drums is not genuinely just a troll. I understand that a lot of these people that are caught up in religiosity are sincere, but that's why I'm here to teach, because I was sincere too. But the more I reached out to try to truly understand the nature of the God that I was serving, I came to understand that I had been hoodwinked and bamboozled, and so has all of humanity. Hi, Raya. Yeah, purple is my color too. I love it. I love it. I love it. But yeah, and people just really do not understand the Jews. If you go back, and I think it's in Deuteronomy, when Yahweh first contracted, if you will, with Abraham, before or at the time of Abraham beginning to link up with Yahweh, right before that, it says that Lamech, his father, had been a scribe in the temple. He was not a scribe in Yahweh's temple. He was a scribe in the temple of Nana Sin, the moon god. No, baby. It don't say he got whipped with a whip. He braided a whip and whipped them out the temple. Go read your Bible. I got a whole thing Easter Sunday, and we discussed John and all the rest of that. That by his stripes we heal. That's a mess that dragon Paul put in there. The apostle Paul never met Yeshua. The apostle Paul hated the Jews and hated everything Yeshua stood for. He declared himself an apostle 100 years after the Romans killed him. And guess what side and what team Paul was on? The Romans, the same people that killed Yeshua, and then turned around and made a made up religion and knit him in the middle of it to justify. They converted Yahweh worship. They remixed it and pushed it out into the world as Christianity, but so that people would continue to worship Yahweh. The Gnostics know Yahweh. He's been known around the world with many. Hey, Antoine, good to see you, brother. Good to see you. He, like I said, Yahwehism or Yahwism was pushed out all around the world, but he's been known in many pantheons be drummed. No, there's no magic over me. And I look, I don't have to bow at the name of Jesus, because the name of Jesus is not Yeshua HaMashiach's name. Jesus means Hail Zeus, which is a nod back to Yahweh. And every time you pray to Jehovah, Yahweh, or Allah, and say in Jesus' name, that's a binding spell, binding right back to Yahweh. And when you seal that prayer with Amen, you're taking it another binding spell right back to Marduk. Know what you're talking about, brother or sister, before you come in here with me. Hi, Tanya. Yeah, I understand fully what I'm talking about. I've been studying this stuff for a long time. Yahweh has been known throughout time as Yaldabaoth is his first name. He's a dragon, just like Tiamat was a dragon. But in the earthly pantheons, he came to this planet. I read the Bible all the time, baby. If you That lets me know you ain't been nowhere near my channel. We read the Bible all the time here. That's what we do here, because I don't want to hear the claptrap, the little kindergarten version that the preachers and the pastors been spoon feeding humanity to keep them in darkness for 2,000 years. I want the truth. Okay, now you got to go because you just being disrespectful. Yeah, goodbye. I don't need that kind of nonsense. You can be removed. Thank you. Uh, Let me see. We're just gonna hide you. You can either stay or go if you choose to, but we're just gonna hide you because we don't need that kind of nonsense. I'm gonna put you in timeout, and we'll see if you understand how to behave when you come back. If you still come back talking that nonsense, you'll be banned from the channel. I don't need that, and I'm not tolerating it here. We got people here that are genuinely interested in learning and turning off their worship gene like Enki told us to do, so that we can get out from under the power of the dragon. Yeshua's death don't have to be in vain, because we don't have to keep reenacting that blood ritual and dark magic that was cast over humanity to keep us blind and lost. We're here to grow and expand our light. We're facing the age of Aquarius. It's time now for us to step into the light. Oludamare is another name. Honestly, I'm not familiar enough with the correlations in the Yoruba pantheon to remember who he. Wait a minute, I got something that might help me though. Hold on, because I can't remember who the different ones correlate to. Mm-mm. Because like I said, in the Tarot of the Orishas, Oludumare is not even in here. I don't believe. I was trying to see. Supposedly, Oludumare is supposed to be the all, but here's the thing: most of the religions. What you said? Artist? What? Oh, you just speak. Let me see. That what I missed? Oh yeah, yeah. They gone. They're on quiet for 30 minutes, and if you know, if they can behave, they can come back. If not, they can be permanently banned. Hi, Tanyelle. Yeah, we're not doing that. But as far as Oludumare, in the Yoruba religion, I believe they represent the all. There isn't truly a real correlation that we could look to for that, because here's the thing: Yahweh is the one that put himself out there to be the big bad all sky daddy. That's not true. The truthfully, the all, the one, doesn't have a sex, did not ask for our worship, does not require our worship. Thank you, Tanya. Hi, Rising. How are you? Good to see you in here this evening. Now that we got rid of the troll, let's get back to what we was talking about over here, about not letting fear change us, or not fearing change, rather to embrace it and let us grow. Let's see what kind of energies we got coming from the ancestors here. Oh yeah, that's all you can do. Like I say, I try to talk to people if they're genuinely interested in learning. We can have differences of opinion, but what we're not going to do is just have somebody spewing that same old Bible thumping stuff at us because they don't listen. And again, I'm not even upset. I understand that they do it because they're in their programming. They haven't broken their programming yet. They want so badly to believe that they preachers and pastors and their grandparents, that nobody would lie to them. But here's what people fail to understand. If they look back under the rules of the initial church, Christianity, high rising, Christianity was founded, basically, it was the Catholic Church and Greek Orthodox. That was the beginning. Everything else that came out of Christianity sprung out of those two. And the rules say anything that they hold to for 200 years becomes law. So it don't matter if it's true or not, it's whether they were willing to hold to that story that long or not. So there's a lot of things that they teach that they know good and full well ain't the truth. There's nothing in the Bible, nothing whatsoever in the Bible to support a burning hell. And yet they got people scared to death of going to hell, you know? And because the fear is put in them that they are going to go to a burning hell. And I would lean toward, if somebody telling me how I could escape that, I'd want to hear all about that. But they're taught they can't question nothing, they can't do nothing yet. What do you say? Oh yeah, they exactly. And they don't. And I thought about that the other day, and I may have even mentioned it. I think on a recent message. People don't understand that they are so busy defending Christianity that they're actually going directly against what the actual Christ had to say and what he was teaching. At the early part, when I first started kind of cracking this open or thinking about it, when Yeshua started shifting my thinking, and I kept thinking the scriptures talking about, and they delivered him up to the Romans. Who was they? The Jews worshiping Yahweh. And then they delivered him up to the Romans, who really weren't even worshiping Yahweh at the time. They were worshiping the sun, but they turned around and created another form of religion to encompass Yahwism. And then they went on a campaign around the world to convert all of these people at the end of bullets and spears and everything else. They literally beat Christianity into the world to the tune of unaliving 80 million people to establish that religion around the world. If it's the truth, why would they have to kill people or threaten to kill people to get them to accept it? Exactly. Yeah. They definitely create their own hell. They definitely create their own hell. And truthfully, because here's the thing, the other possibility, they will understand and accept the fact that the Bible is open to interpretation, and they'll listen to all of these folks in the robes and the swinging the incense and all that, because those people have the boldness to put themselves at the forefront and declare themselves experts on Christianity. They have declared that they're the only ones that can interpret scripture. They're the only ones that can tell us what it means. And they sit back and hand down all of these things that they say Christianity means to keep the little people, the ones that's putting the butts in the pews, the ones that's actually paying all of their salaries. They keep them in subjugation and tell these people that they can't think for themselves. But the scriptures tell us we have to examine the scriptures and think for ourselves, don't it? Test these things and see that they're true. Yeah. Ooh, ancient sage just popped out of the deck. Draw wisdom from the past. For real. So it just amazes me. And I just pay attention to things. When all of this information, like I said, as a child, I hated. Trust me, in my house, we had Bible study, book study, whatever, ministry school, Sunday meeting, Thursday meeting, Tuesday meeting. And in between, my mama gathered all of the children up, and we still had to sit down and read from the Bible aloud. I done had many a lesson on the end of a belt, had to learn all the little nitpicky names. Like I said, Mahershala, and this one and that one, and all of who begat who and who begat who. And again, they're doing it because they're told to do it and they thought that they were supposed to do it. And even with all of the spiritual advancement that I thought they had, come to find out they ain't know what they was talking about neither. Because they don't understand that all of that lineages that was listed in the Old Testament was because the Anunnaki kept careful records of in their breeding program and in their religion lineage. That's all that was. Christianity made up that lie to tell us that they was tracking the lineage of Jesus. But the way they put the Bible together, it's like, for example, most people think that the Bible is put together in chronological order. They don't realize Job is kind of sort of in the middle, right before we get segue from the Old Testament into the New Testament. But truthfully, Job happened before all of that, probably before the flood. They talk about Lamech leaving the temple of Nannar Sin. I don't even know if they named the temple, but like I said, he wasn't serving Yahweh. And Abraham started serving Yahweh. Yahweh promised the land of Canaan to Abraham. He told him, I'm going to give you a son in your old age, and I'm going to make your nation, your people, a mighty nation. And he's going to give them this land, the promised land, the land of Canaan. He promised Abraham that. And 500 years later, he turned around and had to promise the same land to the nation of Israel, because he didn't give it to Abraham. And guess what? He didn't give it to Israel either. And guess what? They still over there fighting over it to this day. Let me see. They don't see the heaven within their soul, so they cling to any rule they see, like a ladder or rope they can climb on, but they'll climb on others to feel taller. Yep. Hi, Cherry. How are you? Glad to see you here. Thank you so much for joining. Yeah, they'll sit there all day because that's a hierarchy of making themselves feel good. After the actual priest kings, the appointed priest kings that the Anunnaki appointed, later on down to all of those systems over time, the more human hands got in it, the more devolved they got and the more corrupted they got. The first set of priest kings, according to the Sumerian kings list and all of that, they were hybrids. They were Anunnaki, like for real Anunnaki hybrids that were appointed by the Anunnaki, and they reigned for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And then after that, okay, honestly, I don't do a whole lot of zodiac readings. I know that sometimes they get into it, but obviously you're saying that as far as you being in May 19th and dealing with a Libra, you probably know more about your situation with your partner and the compatibility or incompatibility zodiacally with them. I follow my own chart and my counterparts chart to a degree, but I also realize that it's not necessarily the hard, fast, be all, end all of things when you're dealing, especially if you're dealing with romantic relationships. Let people tell it. Aquarius and Cancer are not necessarily the best of matches, but in certain circumstances, they obviously can be. Because me and my dude are happy as two peas in a pod, and it works just fine. And it's crazy because I'm a Cancer, he's an Aquarius. We're both Virgo rising. He's a fire moon, I'm a fire moon, not in the same sign, but we're both fire moons. We're both Virgo rising. Our Cancer, our both of our Venus is in Cancer, and in my chart, I've only got Aquarius in two places in my chart, and one of them is my part of fortune. As a divine counterpart, we literally are wrapped into each other. We're interdependent upon each other. So it really just kind of takes um, you understanding that on an individual basis, but it is so individual, and I'm not advanced enough in astrology till I don't really mess with that too much, Cherry. Let me see when you're affiliated with. Exactly. Girl, you know what? Oh my goodness, Unique. I have forgotten. I don't know why I was thinking maybe it was somebody else. I was thinking that you were Church of God in Christ because my background is JW and they, oh, like you said, now that you go back to it too, and now y'all, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna hog it and talk to her as one, but anybody else that might be triggered by the JW thing, you know what really trips me out the most about that now? Occasionally I go to like XJW sites and stuff like Lloyd Evans and different ones and kind of hear what they got to say. And was it somebody Panda that be on there? I think it's XJW Panda or something, and listen to their stuff, but they record like different snippets from their conventions and their stuff that they have on the jw.org site. Every time I listen to those men speak, it just floors me that I ever even remotely paid attention to them and didn't think they was completely crazy. They sound crazy. They talk down to people like they talking to toddlers. Their whole inflection and all of the speakers sound the same. They've sat up in a room somewhere and decided that that way of pacing their conversation with that over exaggerated sing song type of way of being. And then they talk down to you because Jehovah says they're just over emoting. And I'm like, what in the Stephen Lett is the worst. I crack up laughing every time I hear Stephen Lett talk. If he didn't make me so mad, I would it would be funny. But it ain't funny to me because I also the year that I really started kind of tuning back in to see what was going on and realize how cultish they were in their ways, I had watched some videos with one of it was on Lloyd Evans, and one of his nephews was doing an interview with Lloyd talking about how upset he was at having been cut off from the whole family because his nephew came out as gay and he was cut off by his whole family. And that year, I think it was either 2021, 2020, somewhere in there, um, that young man unalived himself because of the stress of being shunned from his family. And that broke my heart. And 3 months after he unalived himself, Stephen Lett stood out there on the district convention circuit and spoke about, he said something so egregious to me. I'm going to tell y'all what he said, but it pissed me off. If I could have got him out, I'd have probably gone to jail for slapping that man. He was so disrespectful, not only to other gay people, but to the fact that his own flesh and blood nephew had been so traumatized that he took his own life. But he actually had the nerve to say that on the other side of Armageddon, when the resurrection happens, that gay people would be resurrected for a chance to repent. And if they still couldn't basically pray the gay away, that they would be destroyed again. How dare you? First of all, you don't know that. And why in the world? Like I said, it just, yeah, I was so done with them people in. And it saddens me because my niece, all of my family is still in it. But one of my nieces is gay. And she went back because she couldn't stand being out in the world and alone or whatever. She got 4 kids. She had 4 kids by a horrible man. And then all of a sudden decided she was gay. Now, whether she is, whether she don't, but is the way she behaves and dresses, I know that that's her heart's desire. And she's in her 40s now and still has never married or done anything else, but she still stick around to hang in there with that mess. And it just breaks my heart that she can't actually experience love because she wants to hang around in that social club. Oh yeah, the unaliving rate amongst people that are shut off from JWs is very, very high. They really aren't. They're not that much different from the Mormons. The only difference between them and the Mormons is the Mormons believe in multiple marriage at a super early age. That's it. The instance of SA is super high in that congregation, and they sweep it under the rug and hide it, depending on who you are. Now they claim they're so super moral, and it depending on who you are. If your parents aren't high enough up in the congregation, then yes, they absolutely will put you out for any kind of sexual wrongdoing. But if your parent, depending on who your people are in that organization, you can get away with just about anything. Yeah, they're not that much different. And truthfully, what God, unique God is what I didn't understand about the witnesses, and that's why I say I know for a fact that my mother was a seeker, but she wasn't aware of the reality of what she basically delivered our family into. There's some certain publications that the JWs have put out over time. Now they're very proud about archiving all of their materials, but if you go to their website, there's certain publications that you'll see the name listed and just an asterisk. They do not have them available for download, even though people still got print copies of them. And one of those documents is the 1934 yearbook of Jehovah's Witnesses. They do the annual thing, kind of like I think it was at the Baptist church that does like the daily my daily bread or whatever. They do something similar where they have a daily scriptural discussion and all that other stuff. In 1934, in one of their daily messages, they had what basically amounted to an open letter to Hitler, sympathizing with Hitler. They were trying to get on the side, on Hitler's good side. And when he didn't basically endorsed them as the religion of choice or whatever, then they start telling all them stories about being persecuted. Now, I'm not advocating what Hitler did. The man was crazy, but he wasn't as crazy and wasn't on the type of time that the world tried to paint him on for the same reasons. But the main reason Jehovah's Witnesses was tortured in the middle of all of that was because Hitler hated liars. Now, he was sick and crazy in the head for sure. But yes, there's another publication, I think it was in 1925. I cannot remember the name of the book because, like I said, I closed so much of that stuff off that it might have been Dennis Finished the Mystery. I can't remember. It was either 1919 or 1925. My parents actually had the book. There were certain publications that they had that were up on the top shelf. They had a copy of the Apocrypha. They had several things that I was forbidden to read. And me being a good, I was a good kid. I didn't sneak and read them at the time that I was there. And yeah, But one of those publications in I think it was 1925, Judge Rutherford, it might have been Noor, but I think it was Rutherford, had said that black people were supposed to be a servant race. Supposed to be. Just like Joseph Smith had tried to claim that same mess. But basically, we should be happy to serve and blah, 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 all the rest of that. But he also, in those same, around that batch of years, he started looking a little crazy because he was specifically trying to pinpoint the day that Armageddon was going to start. At first, he said it was going to happen in 1914 or 1919. Then it was in the spring of 1919. Then it was in October. Then he gave a date in 1925. And when none of those dates happened, that's when they kept starting with the new light and the this and that and saying that this generation would not pass away. Well, guess what? The generation that saw 1914 is over 100 years old now. They're gone. That's when they start hollering about new light. But yeah. And I had to really, the more I started tapping into the early 20th century religions and the late 19th century religions, I don't know for sure what Russell had to say or do, because you got to remember the organization was founded by Charles Russell, but shortly after that, by 1910 or so, it was in 1879, I think Russell founded it, the Russellites. And even then, they had a lot of information about the Watchers. That's why they're the Watchtower Society. So he was kind of tapped into some of the ancient Hermetic texts and stuff. But Rutherford took over. So whether the organization really stands for what Russell initially wanted to stand for, probably not, because they went on a whole different ball game. But exactly, and you're right, Raya. No living being is made to serve. They started initially, the concept of slavery was as the spoils of war. It had absolutely nothing to do with race whatsoever. So any organization that preaches anything racial, they alive from I can't even say alive from the pits of hell, because there's no pits of hell to come from. But I'm saying anyone that's still promoting any kind of racism on this planet is definitely not an enlightened being. They're not coming from any place spiritual. Hey Christy, how are you? Welcome. Yeah, that was one of the things that Inky had such an issue with. But when they decided to fashion man, let us make man in our image, because they knew that slavery was wrong. They had said they had been around on their planet long enough to know that they don't do that, and they didn't do it on their home world. And that was part of the moral argument against doing it. And I think that was one of the reasons why Inky had so much compassion. He didn't really want it to be abject servitude like Enlil did. He felt like, according to, again, I can't say what he thought or whatever. He hasn't given me that level of insight, but from everything that I've read and the tone that I gather as I'm reading it, once Homo sapiens sapiens became Homo sapiens sapiens with Anunnaki blood in our veins, he saw us as his children or his relatives, his progeny. So he didn't want to treat us like that. That's why he told Eve the truth, because he could not go along with his brother's lie. He did not want us to continue to believe in that whole servitude thing, and they're believing that they're gods and all the rest of that stuff. If y'all, any of you, I mean, some of you that are on the channel are probably getting the information that we're going through with the Emerald tablets and the compendium and all that. And if you're not, I highly encourage you to do that, to go in and check at that information, because as you read through that, it gives you a bit of insight as to how Thoth felt, as well as Inky, because you don't hear directly from Inky in the Emerald tablets, but Thoth is his son. And in the Emerald tablets, he Thoth develops a different relationship with his father. He's not referring to him as Enki. He's seeing this more spiritual side of his father, the one that's here as a progenitor of the human race in his deep spiritual role as the dweller in his Agwanti. He said everyone is made up of their choices, not their ancestors. We will never be our ancestors more than we are ourselves. This is true. We can be guided by our ancestors. We work on our ancestral paths by what we are able to walk through and figure out. When they talk about generational curses unto the father, unto the son, 7 generations, 10 generations, all that stuff they discuss in the Bible, the reason ancestral curses, so to speak, are perpetuated is the same thing that we talked about basically when we were talking about the whole religion thing. It gets perpetuated because people refuse to step away from stuff out of ignorance and fear. Because my great granddaddy did it, and his daddy did it, and I got to continue doing it, even though we find out that there's a better way and another way to do it, but we continue to do it because somebody back there told us to do it. That's how generational curses keep getting perpetuated. You want to heal your ancestral bloodlines? Expand your consciousness and grow. That's what Thoth said he was going to stay here long enough for us to do. He went to his father, the dweller, and said, yes, I have reached enlightenment. I have reached immortality. I am free from death. I don't have to do this no more. But I don't want to just leave and go roam the cosmos forever. Let me stay here and come and serve the sons of man. I want to help them until their consciousness expands, so they don't have to keep coming back and repeating this thing over and over. I want to help them learn. I want to help them grow, and that's how you break generational curses, to be fearless enough to not keep bending to the lie. If you don't know no better, you can't be held at fault. But once you know better, you got to do better. And all of them good Bible thumpers in this day and age, and again, I say that a little bit disrespectfully, but I'm not truly being as disrespectful as I used to be about it. But I still call them Bible thumpers because our grandparents and even our parents, in my case, because I'm in my mid 50s, my parents had me when they were old to start with. My parents were born in like 1928, 1930. People in that era had every excuse in the world because they genuinely didn't know any better. All they had access to was the Bible and what the preacher told them. But around 1983, 4, 5 ish or so, we got this little thing that rolled out called the internet. Now there's no excuse. It's been around long enough. We have access to the esoteric works. We have access to a lot of the older Gnostic texts. We have access to all of this information before us, and there are plenty of people that have been translating this information and discussing it and looking at it and breaking it down and all the rest of that. We no longer have the comfort. They take comfort in their ignorance, but I'm saying for most of us, we don't really have an excuse to sit around in that level of ignorance anymore. What's going on? Unique. Most Bible thumpers don't even know what the Bible really says. That's the truth. They know what they was taught in Sunday school, and they don't even understand. Pastor say. Exactly. And you're right. They know whatever verses they need to learn in Sunday school or whatever, because a lot of these preachers don't get into any real deep level whatever. They sit and study a certain passage that they can do their little rhyme scheme, and they get the crowd worked up and all the rest of that to do a sermon. And there, if you just sit in church weekend, you can go to church every week. You can even do church every week, 2 or 3 times a week for 20 or 30 years, and most of them don't know. And honestly, that was one of the reasons I kind of stepped away when I I'm gonna have a little bit of transparency again. I was so wanting to know that when I left the JWs, I floundered around. Like I said, the world beat me up bad. I'm neurodivergent to start with, was green as grass out there, got handed off to a lot of dangerous people, went through the whole poverty thing, as you can imagine, terrible relationships, as you can imagine, all the rest of that stuff. But at the time, I thought Yahweh was the best thing smoking. So I was still trying to, I just thought it was just Jehovah's Witnesses that had it wrong. So I decided I was going to go and try another sect of Christianity. I've been baptized in two sects. I was baptized as a witness and I was baptized as a Baptist. When I moved to Virginia, I got baptized at Liberty Baptist. They got a whole university of people. And if you sit down and listen to anything that them people are talking about, you'll be led just as lost can be. Imagine they are literally taking people's money to the tune of $80,000 to $100,000 to give these kids an education, and some of them in Bible theology. And they have no idea what they're talking about because they're still trying to stick to what the seminary approves. It's crazy because they still want to follow the controllers. And when I started actually, like I've had preachers and whatever, they can't stand to see me coming because they said I'm a problem because I ask too many questions and I don't want to just accept the lie no more. But I was determined. I wanted to know who Yahweh was, like for real, no. And the more I found out, I had to peel back. No, sir, I'm not. You say you were raised with seniors from the turn of the century. Yeah. You learned that they were so wrong by watching and listening as a baby. They spout a lot of evil in ignorance. Yeah. Yeah. Because they believe what they're told. And again, I can't even fault them. Most of that generation wasn't even supposed to wake up. They were never designed to wake up. They was designed to give birth to the first wave of star seeds. That's it. That's all they're doing. The earth was in darkness for a long time, but didn't Yeshua say that was going to happen? In the Gospel of Judas, he told him, he in the Bible, he told them that after they unalived him, that there would be a deceiver that would come along and lead humanity lost, and humanity will remain lost for thousands of years. And that's why I say I used to put so much store in with that hint that he gave us that um, the water bearer would show the way, because he was pointing to a time he said, in my father's house there are many abodes, there I go to prepare a place for you. So I already knew he's coming back. Now I was never looking for him to come back physically because that really wouldn't be a wise move. They unalived him and they're gonna try to do it again. Like I say, if you understood, look at Simeon Tuco and the story of Black Jesus in Africa in the 60s. You can't even hardly find the story online no more. But when it was around and I did hear about it and all the rest, that David Wilcock had put it in a book. They warned him not to talk about it in the book, but he did anyway. But they tried in the 60s, a man came back that had Messiah like powers and they tried to unalive him. They not ready for that. They don't want to hear nothing about it. Then people worship the dragon. They put him to death once. They afraid if he tried to come back physically, they will unalive him again. They ain't scared and they ain't repentant. That's one of the reasons why they teach all of this Christianity and love. And even in the Vatican, go look at, they got a sanctuary in the Vatican that if you stand from the pulpit and look back at the door, it forms the head of a serpent. And people don't give a crap. Yeah, the man with the water pitcher. That, to me, that's pointing to Aquarius, which is Inky. Inky is the prototype Aquarius. Yep. Raya, you in the right place then, because that's what we do here. That's what we do. We discuss it. We discuss it. Exactly. Yep. And there are 12 ages, and that was the thing people don't understand. When Moses was here, Moses was basically the keeper of the age of Taurus. He pointed the way to Yeshua. Yeshua was basically the keeper of the age of Pisces, and he said at the end of that age He literally pointed us to the man with the water pitcher, Aquarius. The zodiacal ages, our zodiac calendar moves forward, but the zodiacal ages move backwards from what we're used to. And we are entering the age of Aquarius. That's one of the reasons the world seems to be going so crazy. When we segue from one age into another, it's not like ripping off a calendar. January, uh, December 31st, we're in the age of Pisces. January 1st, we're in the age of Aquarius. Ta-da! No, it ain't like that. It's like a 150 bumpy ride, a Segway. The Aeon of Horus could be, but I'm trying to see how a Horus in the well, no, in the Egyptian pantheon, Enki is Ptah. I don't know who Horus was, but it either way, it's not going. Hey, Doctor Strange, how are you? How are you? And Charles, yep, good to see you. Good to have you back. Appreciate it. Like I said, I came on tonight. I got some different cards. I wasn't gonna try to pull a love reading. We were gonna pull some for the chosen tonight, but we having a good time talking, so we don't have to. We don't even have to do that. But while I was sitting here shuffling, guess what came out? Voice of thunder breaks silence with inner power. We sitting here talking about speaking our truth, no longer bowing down to the lies, not being afraid to speak out, and divine alchemist turn challenges into wisdom. Mm-hmm. Are you a great old one? Maybe. Never know. I I was looking at some stuff on Fifth Kind today, but I'm gonna have to kind of compress a couple of them. There's a couple of video bits that, well, actually, there's a piece that I've got to digest a little bit, and I'm not sure. A million-year-old child, best way to be. Um, it wasn't on Fifth Kind. I think it was on Astral Legends that was talking about gematria and like the celebrity rituals and all of that kind of stuff. But they really went a lot into how these beings, these archons and stuff, use that energy and like the energy of the rituals of like what happens at music concerts and how they put them in the trances and stuff. Look at here, Lionheart, fearless in the face of adversity. Um, but it was talking about how they feed off of that energy, and heaven forbid if they get those situations like they have at those festivals where the people get so ramped up and they're into that energy that somebody actually loses their life, that it just really feeds those archons and stuff. It's a very interesting piece, and I really am gonna have to get into it um, a little bit and take my time with it, or I'll point out as best I can. Let me see. Okay. Well, then I hope that you know what. If you're saying that I'm not sure about the Aeon of Horus because I don't think he's gonna have a whole Aeon to worry about it. I really believe Marduk is gonna go down with Yahweh because truthfully, I get it. I mean, in this larger right and wrong thing in the Anunnaki wars, it's not so cut and dry as far as that. But you got to remember, even from the Lost Book, Marduk, he don't learn. He was exiled once before. The only reason he still had any dealings or any land, any claim, any people, any worship, anything was because his granddaddy rolled up from Nibiru and felt sorry for him and was like, oh, he's been punished long enough. Let him come back in amongst everybody. And he immediately started showing his ass when he got out of exile. He ain't learned nothing. Him and Yahweh are greedy and grasping. They want all of the worship to themselves. They don't have no problem with teaching humans black magic and stuff to get what they need and want. They are not good. And he's displayed no repentance in all these hundreds of thousands of years. No, he got to go. There will be no Aeon of Marduk. He got to go. The final Christianity teaches us that Armageddon is supposed to be this battle between dark and light, good and evil, and all of that. And the more I read the Bible and see what it is, I honestly believe that Armageddon is just the final skirmish in the Anunnaki wars, where they are going to depose the dragon. And you know they don't mind killing each other. Marduk slayed Tiamat, his mama. Let them tell it according to the Babylonian epic. Now, I don't really think Tiamat was physically Marduk's mama. I forgot who. Damkina was. I don't think Damkina was Marduk's mother either. You know, they had a whole bunch of baby mamas and that kind of stuff. They slept with each other's sisters and all that other stuff. But my point is, they had no problem with if one of them really got each other. Because when he destroyed Sumer by unleashing the evil wind, it was because he was trying to stop, was it Nanar? Or whichever one he was trying to stop from getting too much power. So he wanted to unleash the weapons of terror to stop his own cousin. They take each other out. There's no family loyalty there. Hold on. Let me see what I missed here. Yeah, Marduk is big time bad news. No, it ain't not. I ain't talk. No, it's way past voodoo. Voodoo is Yahwism to an extreme, and using, like I said, they all of that voodoo, Satanism, Luciferianism, voodoo, all of those have been manipulated, and voodoo, Ifa, all of those religions that basically have a Yahwist base have been grossly manipulated over time. That's why I don't really fool with none of them. Yeah, exactly. Unique. He's the, Marduk is one of Enki's bad apples. He is Enki's son, but he act like his uncle Enlil. Yep. Actually, Charles, I don't. He ain't the only reason they fight against each other is because they both want to one up each other for supreme rulership over the earth. But other than that, Horus or Marduk and Enlil, Yahweh, kind of have the same agenda. That's why they don't get along. But truthfully, if they had to, they would stand together against the rest of the world and against the rest of the Anunnaki brothers and sisters and cousins and everything else. They want ultimate power. They don't care about, they want to shut out everybody else. The other Anunnaki were pretty much content for a time. They all kind of had their own people, their own lands. They set up their temples and all the rest of that. The people served them and they served the people and the people took care of them, and that was all well and good and it was fine. Marduk and Yahweh are greedy, very, very greedy. Absolutely, Raya. There is no divinity in God. We're not supposed to worship. We're supposed to commune and cooperate with, but we are not supposed to worship nobody. You might be young mystic, you might be Lyran. Be careful, young mystic. If you love Jah, that's a Yahweh, that's a dragon and a reptile. You talk about you hate reptiles, but if you talk about you love Jah, he is a reptile and not a good one. That's the lie we've been sold. We've been told that good is bad and bad is good. Christianity is always talking about beware of false light, and most Christians have no idea that that is the false light. Yeah, but honestly, and that's the problem that I have an issue with, Charles, when we still try to go back and jump into a pantheon. And I know black folks love going back to the Egyptian pantheon and the Netter. Especially, there's a whole bunch of folks out there that's supposed to be enlightened, and they got the netaroo and the this and the that, and all they're doing is swapping one religion for another. Because at the end of the day, all of them cats came off the same spaceship. No matter what you call them, they're not to be worshipped. They are our progenitors. They are to be respected and cooperated with, but we are not supposed to worship them. If the closest thing that we should come to, and if you think about it, they come up with all of these regulations and all the stuff they got to do, and the voodoo and the Ifa and the netter and all the rest of that, but they all still kind of play out like some aspect of Yahwism. And there's still a bunch of arguing and fussing and bowing and scraping and rule having and ritualistic and all of that stuff. Look at Buddhism, though. And again, I'm not telling you that Buddhism is perfect, because it's been adulterated over time as well. But Buddhism wasn't even supposed to be a religion. Buddhism, Jainism, those type things, they're philosophies. Taoism. Think about the world we would be living in if the whole world was Buddhist. There'd be no starvation nowhere, because you're not going to let your brother starve. There'd be no wars nowhere. There's no misogyny. There's no sexual violence. None of that stuff. You can't pay a Buddhist to pick up a gun and shoot nobody. You can't. But that's not the world we live in. We live in the world that lies in the power of the wicked one, the one that's run by Yahweh. Yeah. We are gods only in the sense that powerful ones. That's the people don't understand. We've been told that word God means something that it doesn't. The word that's translated as God in the scriptures, Elohim, El Elyon, El Shaddai, all of those things that they have interpreted and they have translated as God do not mean God. There, and that's something I was listening to, and I think this was on Fifth Kind. It was something from an older clip of Jordan Maxwell before he transitioned, and they were saying how, truthfully, in the Bible, there is no word at all in the Bible that accurately translates to this transcendent, all powerful creator God thing that we've been taught and programmed to believe, that sky daddy image that we've been taught that means God. There is no word in the Bible that translates that way. Elohim just simply means powerful ones. That's all. El Shaddai, the sons of the powerful ones. El Elyon means the destroyer. So Yahweh told them, he told Abraham he was the destroyer. Follow me and don't mess up. But it doesn't mean I'm the Alpha and the Omega and the be all. That was a whole bunch of blowharding that he did to intimidate them people and get them to serve him. We have a whole lot of deliberate misinterpretation, mishandling of the ancient text. But again, we were told that the texts were the infallible word of God, when in actuality, they were an amalgamated um, remix of a lot of curated ancient texts from around the planet. Exactly. But that was why you said that a true divine doesn't need to be worshipped. They're divine just as they are. Exactly. That was why Enki has such a moral dilemma with that. He put the worship gene in us because Enlil insisted on it, but then he felt bad about it and removed it, because he was like, if you truly got all that going on, why do you need worship? Well, like I said, Yahweh was lazy. He didn't want to. He didn't want to do the work before humans got here. He came here to just rule over. He's the Lord of the command. Enki was the one that was out there running the cruise and setting up this and exploring the Apsu and going and laying out the calendar and mapping the stars and doing this and creating the house of life. And Enlil was sitting back chilling. Enlil wanted people to get his barbecue for him. Why do you think he likes blood sacrifice so much? He's not a vegetarian. He likes to eat meat. That is why in all of the religions that he basically ruled over, animal sacrifice was such a big thing. Yeah, indeed. Yes, indeed, Mystic. You said Star Trek became real when people built the ideas and imagined. Not only that, honestly, I used to wonder. I've seen every Star Trek uh, episode that's ever been aired. I actually, once upon a time, I dated a guy, and truthfully, I think the only good thing I got out of that was he was like a video file and an audio file. So he collected a lot of songs, music, videos, all that stuff. And when he learned that I was a Trekkie, he had collected all of those episodes. And yeah, I dated him long enough to watch all of them. I binge watched all of them because I was a Trekkie for real. But one of the things I want to know is whoever came up with that concept of the show. I know good and full well it didn't just come out of thin air. Great concepts like that are, I believe, collective inspirations. Like I said, when you tap into the unified field, you're given concepts and ideas. But the whole premise of that entire show was that no planet would be allowed to be introduced to other planets until their consciousness had expanded enough to where they could be introduced by the Galactic Council into the Federation of Planets. And humankind had just, our consciousness supposedly had just expanded to the point that we were being invited into the Federation, the Galactic Council, or the Galactic Federation of Planets, whatever they called it. And that was like their first exploratory trip to go out and meet some of our galactic brothers and sisters. Said a god shouldn't be an emotional and angry warmonger. Exactly. So that kind of put Marduk and Yahweh off the map because they've been emotional, angry, and warmongers from the very beginning. Lord of the Command. He came here wanting to run stuff and running. He's a general. He commands soldiers. That's what he is. He is a military tactician. Oh yeah. Now, honestly, I read the first Dune book as a teenager, and I did all the cross referencing and this and that and all that. And I think I saw the first movie, but by then I was just kind of done with Dune. I was on to, I think at the time I was dealing with, was it Robin Cook's stuff or whatever? I got somewhat into sci-fi, but I kind of lost interest in Dune because it just got to be too much. Stargate is something that I want to go and look at too, because you're absolutely correct. I wasn't into Stargate at the time, but I've come to understand that there's a whole lot of truth hidden in plain sight right there. And I have so much stuff I need to watch. I haven't caught up and gone back and watched Stargates, but yeah. American Gods was another series that I loved. I absolutely love because they did a whole lot of telling in that one too. Um, I want to go. Still ain't seen Gods of Egypt. There's a whole lot of movies and stuff that I just didn't because I do understand that they hide the truth, right? That it ain't even hiding anymore. They just call it entertainment and they spoon feed us stuff if we choose to believe it we can or not. But most people laugh it off as entertainment. It ain't just entertainment. The Matrix is what split my mind wide open. I remember when that movie came out, I saw it on VHS, and it was such a mind screw for me till the moment the closing credits was rolling. I had to rewind it and watch it again immediately, and then the next day I watched it again. Like I say, and my life has never been the same. I really came to understand. I mean, even if everything in there ain't absolutely the gospel, it allowed me to understand, number one, that they have been literally showing us the truth. But most people, most sheeple, are so asleep They just cannot see the truth. And that's exactly what the powers that were want. Under Luciferian law, they have to tell us the truth. If we don't get it, they're absolved of their karma. So they tell us and then laugh it off as conspiracy theory or entertainment or whatever and hope and pray that we don't ever get it. Because here's the thing, I was so afraid of displeasing Yahweh. But when I finally made my stance and was like, hell no, I'm not going no further with this. I'm not worshiping you. And I understand who you are, and I'm not going no further with it. You know what? I actually had a conversation with Yahweh. And it was like, okay, you got me. It's literally like when Toto pulled the curtain back on the wizard and realized it was just a man. The jig is up. And I'm not saying I'm so protected nothing could happen. But I honestly feel like to some degree, I don't have the major spiritual issues that I see and hear a lot of people talking about because I do have respect to some degree. I was angry with him, and I'm not going to bow and scrape and bite my tongue over much, but I'm not like super with it either. So it's like once I saw and understood the truth, and I do give respect to Enki and of course Yeshua, that's my dude. We gon' like I said, that can never be broken. But because I know who Yahweh is and I don't bow to it anymore, it's I don't know if I have his outright protection or he just choose to leave me alone, but it's almost like angels protect me and demons respect me. They don't bother with me, period. And people that try to send stuff my way, they don't do so well. It gets uncovered real quick and it gets flipped right back to them. Most of them wind up going a little crazy, to be honest with you. Let me see what I missed over here. Right? Yeah, I am looking forward to that too. Let me see. I'm trying to catch up. I was so busy talking. I see. Human imagination. Warmonger. SG. Yeah, I'm gonna get to Stargate. Oh Lord. You want to talk about, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. Synchronicities are so huge here. We're sitting here, we're talking about Stargate, this, that, and the other, and the notifications still come through as I'm sitting here talking to you all. Paul Wallace's channel, The Fifth Kind, just dropped a video called Project Stargate. I kid you not. I may have to look into that one for tomorrow's discussion. I don't know. That might have to jump the line because it was just so, that's just too much. Mm-mm-mm. Let's see. The future Cameron warned us about isn't fiction. Exactly. Yeah. All of the stuff that we grew up reading in science fiction back when we were kids is here now. And truthfully, even more than we know. Like Billy Carson talks about, anything that we see, we can know that they're already 20, 30 years ahead of what they allow us to see now. I understood that back though. Was it 1983 when they was talking about cloning sheep? They was already, you know good and damn well they cloning humans. They won't admit to it, but you know they are. Look at all them glitched out celebrities we see. They come back looking different, acting different, doing all that craziness. Yeah, buddy. They doing whatever they want to. But yeah, RB, I can't wait to get into Earth Chronicles either. I'm right there with you, Unique Goddess. Inky and Ningazita and Yeshua is my dudes. And the more, like I said, the more I keep thinking about it and I can't get it out of my mind, so I kind of really believe that I'm on to something there. I believe with all of my heart that Ningishzida and Yeshua are the same individual. I believe that Yeshua was Thoth incarnate on this earth. Yeah, I love Ninhar Sag as well. I can't agree with everything she did. I was kind of mad. But then again, everybody changes and makes mistakes. And I appreciate the fact that she was able to recognize her mistake and correct it because she literally initially sided with Enlil in the whole flood debacle. She was like, okay, yeah, scrap them, let it go, whatever. And then afterwards, she was the one that said, never again will we allow this to happen. She was the one that instituted the rainbow. Yahweh took credit for a whole lot of stuff he didn't do. Charles, you ain't right, but you ain't wrong either, brother. They had Biden 2.0, 3.5, 4.1. He got taller, he got shorter, he got younger, he got older. I can't figure out why they couldn't make the man be able to stand up straight and have a string together a full sentence, though. Yeah. And Nana, uh, honestly, for me anyway, just from what I understand that Anana got into and the way some of the things that she ventured off into, I'd have to look further into it. And Nana initially was all about like sacred sexuality and all that other good stuff, but her worship became such an adulteration of sexuality, and then there was like a bit of androgynism and misgenderism and a lot of things that went on in the temple of Inanna that I just kind of my love for Ninhursag is as our truly as our mother. She is one of our progenitors. If it were not for her, if it were not for Enki, Ninhursag, and Ningizida, we would not be sitting here having this conversation. Enlil had nothing to do with that. That was all them. That was some beautiful minds to put all of that together. Enki found the primates and them other two. It would be nice if I could get the likes up, but you know what, Antoine? I understand that this channel is a little bit different, excuse me, than some others because for real, I exactly, yes, they are, to me they are that holy trinity for real. I mean, on the earthly plane, I get that part. Um but Antoine, back to what you were saying about getting the likes up, it's I've just resigned myself to the fact that I'm gonna just have it's gonna have to happen kind of an organically thing. Um if I really, really was focused on the likes and growing the channel hugely, I would separate my content and just do tarot on one and just do spiritual content on the other. But I do understand that a lot of the folks that would be necessarily may be drawn to tarot initially would not necessarily stick around or migrate to the spiritual channel. So I chose to keep everything under one umbrella, even if it somewhat slows my growth here a little bit, because the message is too important not to get it to as many people as I can. I don't want to sequester it just for people that are already seeking, because a whole lot of the folks that's interested in on my channel, like I said, we've been reading this stuff for a long time. We're learning and growing together. I'm trying to get more to people that haven't really heard it yet, that need to begin to go there. So I just have to depend on spirit to look out for me. Because for real, before, I don't really expect YouTube monetization to take care of me on this channel. I do believe once I get a little bit larger audience, I am going to open a calendar for personal services so I can do individual, personal readings and things like that. I'll start making my candles and my Reiki infused jewelry and things like that. Once I go ahead and get my certification together for coaching and do some spiritual counseling and coaching and things like that, that's what's going to have to take care of me. The YouTube monetization probably won't. No, Herzog. Honestly, there's not a lot of info about Lilith that I've seen yet that comes up with. So I know a lot of folks say that she was supposed to be Adam's first wife and she didn't submit to him and all the rest of that. But the more I read about the creation story, I would tend to wonder about that because it could be a legend that just sprung up. We don't know whether there really, really was a Lilith or not. Because if you remember, it's not the same, but it's close. The first viable man was the Lulu, not Lilith, but Lulu. But it was sterile. Adam was sterile. And Eve's name wasn't Eve. They called her Tiamat, after Tiamat the planet and Tiamat the dragon. Her first name, they just decided to call her Eve later. But initially, those first viable human attempts, they were keeping such careful records till they named the 7 women who gave birth to the initial children in the Adamu project. And Adamu was carried by Ninhursag herself. She bore that zygote herself, that baby. And then Tiamat, Eve, was carried by Damkina, Enki's wife. That close in the game, if Lilith was a real person, we'd probably have a little more documentation of it. That may have been one of the stories that came out of it later, because Christianity wants to tell us that God made Adam and Eve and everything rocked off from there, but they had several iterations of humans, or attempts at creation of humans before they got to Adam and Eve. And then, like I said, even after Adam and Eve had begun to breed, later on down the line, Enki noticed that their intelligence was slipping, the genome was devolving again too rapidly. So he went and made it with Dawn and Dusk, and they gave birth to Adapa and Titi. Those were the first civilized humans, because they were basically 3/4 Anunnaki, instead of well, maybe not entirely 3/4. It depends on how far out of the breeding program they were, but they did have Anunnaki DNA in them, but they were considered just humans. And then he made it with them, and they gave birth to Adapa and Titi. So he said you say you're not sure the experts agree that there was literally any prostitution in Inanna's temples. It didn't have to necessarily be prostitution, because with Sekhmet and Inanna, you have to remember, we're Christianity and Islam, and to a large extent Judaism, because of the restrictive nature, because they are Yahwist religions, they very much tamped down and cut off femininity and sexuality, made it very much that cut and dry missionary, tab A, slot B type thing, and all these rules and regulations about can't do. But part of the reason for that is because they understood too what we're going to have to get back to. That's why as we're having a return of the divine feminine, why there's also a call for a return to sacred sexuality, because they've always known the power in our sexual energy. And in those temples, they used that. Those women were taught, like I said, it's not a prostitution type thing. They would be courtesans in holy service in the temple, but it's for a sacred purpose. They were actually harnessing and using the sexual arts, not just for titillation and for the purpose of getting one's jollies, although that does happen, but that's not the main purpose for it. That's not the main focus of it. That was one of the reasons I hesitated, because I'm being called. I do understand at some point I'm supposed to teach more about sacred sexuality, because I can speak on it without being embarrassed. I just didn't want to start speaking on it until I'm back in union with my actual divine counterpart, because my sexual experience to this point has been with imbalanced people. But once I'm actually at a point where I have a tantric counterpart or consort to practice with, then I'm being called to actually teach it, because in balance and in union, our sexual energy is one of the highest, cleanest forms of energy available to us as humans on this planet. And if we truly learn how to balance our energies and learn how to tap into the unified field, you can become a manifestation powerhouse by using that energy. He said, those who preach love and kindness, yeah, they're going to be attacked. Of course, they're going to be attacked because we walk right now. Look around the world at you. The world, we are walking around, looks like we're walking on a set of The Walking Dead. Does it not? And to some degree, they are, because, like the scriptures say, we battle not against flesh and blood, but against powers and principalities. And as this thing is really, really ramping up, these people are losing their minds. They're not feeding their spirituality, and the powers that were are steadily draining them through the gods of media, the gods of religion, the gods of politics, and the gods of hatred. All of that negativity is literally draining humanity's batteries, those that are unawakened and unawakened and unlightened. And they are in such a wounded space to when they encounter love and real light, they lash out like wounded dogs. You can't even be mad at them. They're like children. They are wounded children. You said the monotheists set those rules in place in order to bind Inanna. Yeah, she terrifies them. They vilify her in Revelations, but she was the first to die and rise from the dead millennia before Jesus. Yeah. Well, and again, Christianity tried to paint the Yeshua story as a unique occurrence. Yeshua was not even the first, he wasn't the first Christos, he wasn't the first martyr. Truthfully, he was the most recent, the latest martyr on the planet, the latest Christos. Maitreya was the Christed Buddha. That's why I said people, when that girl earlier talking about the blood of Jesus and all that other stuff, they don't understand Christ is not a name. And Jesus was not Yeshua's name. None of that have nothing to do with Yeshua. Christ is a title, and I ain't gonna say plenty of folks, but several others have reached it. But Christ, the Yeshua story, as they tell it in the scriptures, is the Osiris story. It's been told over and over and over and over again through many different times and eras and places on this planet. Yeah, and like I said, Inanna did rise. Yeah, I just, like I said, I haven't delved deeply into a Nana story, because by the time I try to keep up with Yeshua and Thoth and then Herzog and Enki, uh, once I turned off my worship gene, it just, my crowd gets smaller and smaller. I respect them all. I work with all of them when they have messages for me and things like that, but I don't have to collect and venerate all of them, because I mean, I know they all at the family reunion, but I'm not. I don't have it in me anymore to have that space of bowing and scraping type of reverent servitude, worshipful servitude that we've been taught we're supposed to have. Once I turned it off, I just can't find it anymore, you know? And truthfully, I think to some degree, I can kind of thank JWs for that, because they really only had that for Yahweh. And once I found out who Yahweh was and what he had done dirty, I wasn't disrespectful of him, but I was very upset. So it was very easy for me to turn that off where he was concerned. And once I realized who I really should be looking to for help, again, I see them more like daddy, uncle, mentor, teacher, like I said, very respectful, but not bowing worship, because truthfully, at the end of the day, like I said, we are them. They're more advanced intellectually and years on us, but the same thing that they've done, we can do. They had to go through their paces and initiation and ascension and all of that till they could advance to that point. Now, yeah, we may need several lifetimes to catch up with them because they are much older than us, but we are them and they are us. Yeah. And I truthfully, in that respect, I guess over time in the pantheons, and I, you know what, I had kind of forgotten about that because there is a correlation to a degree. And again, I don't know for sure if she is it, because there is a blurring of the lines between Ishtar and Isis and Inanna. So truthfully, it kind of is maybe one of the other names of Ninhursag. I'd have to look again. Some say it is, some say it isn't. But yeah, but that's why I say I can't. I once I start realizing that when we look into these different pantheons, they're kind of all the same, I stopped really trying to track down each and every one of them. I did it to a degree, but I don't have to dig so deep into each one of them because it's just the same story over and over and over and over again. So I just stick with the initial names and leave it alone. Right, Antoine. That's what I'm saying. It's like for me, it was trying to track down who Inky was because I know at some point during the trail, if you will, Inky and Enlil started kind of doing that wolf in sheep's clothing thing, especially once he was displaced of land and people. There were times in the timeline where Inky would go into a land and basically allow the people to believe he was masking himself under attributes that would normally be attributed to, I mean, not Enlil, Yahweh would mask himself under attributes that would be attributed to Enki. It didn't happen a whole lot, but it was some documentary I was watching, and they were like tracking religion like all the way through, and he blurred the lines there. And in some cases, over time, that happened with some of the other gods and goddesses too. But I think Yahweh did it intentionally because he was such a jackass and had such a bad reputation that he started going into places and absorbing his brother's reputation. So I was kind of trying to track down and straighten that, keep those straight, and I just never really started trying to track down like all of the names of Thoth and all of the names of Ninhursag. Yeah, I was more focused on Enki. Right, but here's the thing. You're saying Inanna was unruly and proud and a femme fatale and not a mother goddess, but Isis is motherly and warm and dutiful. But they all have aspects of some of that or each other. Hi, Elias. How are you? Um, to some degree. And because, like I said, I it, uh, Ninhursag, Isis, she has that reputation of being motherly and warm and dutiful and all of that. But you forget, she was in love with Yahweh, but slept with Enki and had a baby for Enki. She wasn't perfect either. So that's what I'm saying. It's like, and when you actually look at who they were and what they did, it plays out exactly, Raya. They lived for 100,000 years. Guess what? Like women go through their whole phase, I'm pretty sure the goddesses do too. And Lord knows Inky plowed his seed somewhere everywhere, you know? So yeah, it is, when I started reading all of this stuff, I'm like, oh my goodness, this stuff sounds like a nighttime soap opera, like Real Housewives or where the hell ever. They was on their stuff. But like you say, look at what we've been told was Roman mythology and Greek mythology and Egyptian mythology. And truthfully, that's three different tellings of the same exact people in three different time periods. And all of them acted a mess, killing each other, sleeping with each other's children, sleeping with humans, waging wars, lying on each other, doing each other dirty. Like I say, it looked like some nighttime soap opera stuff. That's our progenitors, y'all. The Real Housewives of Heaven. And I have such disrespect for that. Real Housewives, that's why I always say Real Housewives or where the hell ever, because ain't nothing real about none of them skankalicious heifers. They just have such little morality that for a buck, they're willing to allow themselves to have a camera strapped to their backs to continue to see that mental poison into the mass consciousness. The only thing worse than a real housewife is a Kardashian, in my humble opinion. I'm sorry if they don't like it because I said it on here. I have very little respect for that. Not because I don't respect people's right to do whatever it is they choose to do, but I clearly see that those people sold their morality and their dignity. And in the case of the Kardashians, those kids are grown now, but their mother did that to them when they were babies. When her cash cow died, representing her boyfriend for killing her best friend, and you got to be old enough to remember the whole OJ and Nicole and all the rest of that stuff. Her husband dropped dead from the stress of trying to defend that mess. And she had to go and replace her cash cow. And she turned her children, she prostituted her children to the world to push the agenda of narcissist, mean girl crap. They were little kids when that mess started, 14, 15, 16 years old, and she turned them into the mass media bees that they are. It's disgusting to me because they really ain't never did nothing to be billionaires for. Nothing. The only reason they really reached that status was because of the men that they churned through and used and abused, if you'll remember. And the fact that they were willing to do all of that with the cameras rolling. I have no respect for none of that. Sorry. Rotten seeds make rotten. Yeah. And honestly, again, if it weren't for the fact that the children were involved, I wouldn't have even necessarily called it rotten. She's a brilliant marketing strategist. That's what Chris knows, marketing. But how shitty do you have to be to market your own children that way? And again, not even just for the sake of doing, they're looking at the money that they made, and that's fine. I ain't really trying to knock nobody hustle, except for the fact, again, I see it differently because I've unplugged from TV, 25 years ago. But when I am a captive audience sometimes and go back and look at what's going on TV, and the short reels will feed me all of it I care to see and more. But I sat there and watched how they played out this recurring theme of narcissist, mean, nice, nasty, mean girl brand of narcissism. They was always eating in some fancy restaurant, always rinsing and repeating some dude that usually an athlete or musician or something, because they was all down with the swirl. So that was radical enough too to catch people's eyes in the public arena. But then they would turn around and do them dudes dirty, churn and burn through them, and then go out to some fancy restaurant on Rodeo Drive and talk shit about them. All while, oh, all I said was, oh, I'm the victim. Oh, disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. I can't even believe that the men that they got involved with didn't see through them quick enough to leave that alone. They should all be pariahs. There shouldn't be a man nowhere on this planet, black, white, Greek, Russian, nowhere that want to be bothered with them, because all they're gonna do is turn and burn through them, and then talk crap about them, set them up in embarrassing situations, and talk crap about them, and then once they got that whole agenda going, she turned around and used her own personal situation to promote that whole sick gender confusion thing that they sprung out on us with, really really exploded on the scene around 2019, 2020. That started right there too. For 2 years, they sat there and did the Bruce Jenner mess on TV. Everybody crying and the kids, and you gonna still be my daddy, and I don't know, and he hadn't even had the surgery, didn't do the hormones, didn't do nothing else. Just popped out with a dress, one of the ugliest women you ever want to see. And the very next year, People Magazine made him Woman of the Year. And the next thing you know, children falling out the woodworks, having gender surgery. The next thing you know, Riley Gaines is up there trying to promote for the fact that this dude, Leah Thomas, done took women's stuff all over the place. All of that mess. All of that started right there on that show. And then Real Housewives of where the hell ever. You said if you could see their handlers, yeah. But that's my part. The whole idea of doing that, the Real Housewives, real where? And most of them women you had never heard of or seen nowhere before they got on that show. And here's the part that really bothers me, especially because now they did Jersey Shore and the Mafia Wives and all of that to try to make a difference. But most of the seasons of Real Housewives of Anywhere feature a whole bunch of ghetto, fabulous, ratchet ass black women. We got enough trouble of our own holding our heads up in the world without doing that. If you get money where you don't have to be acting up behind like that, you'd have made it somewhere. You making money. I saw one, I don't remember the name of the show, but they were all supposed to be either high profile doctors or the wives of high profile doctors. So all of these women on this show are attached to people that are millionaire status or higher, and they were still acting like a whole bunch of project hoes, talking the most ratchet garbage behind nonsense anybody ever want to see. That makes me sick to my heart because guess what? While it may play out well for you. You getting your paper, boo. You doing this. You fabulous. You got your money. It plays out well for them. But for the children, the teenage, and the young women in the world that are watching that idolize those women and those behaviors, it don't translate well to real life. Nice, nasty, mean girl stuff. Trust me, I done seen the ghetto version of that. It ain't cute. That's the part, that's the only reason I knock them. Like I say, in general, I try not to knock nobody with they hustle. But when you are helping poison the minds of the masses, especially in the dawn of the age of Aquarius, where we should be lifting each other up and doing better, and you're helping be the problem instead of being the solution just so you can add a couple of zeros in your bank account. No, if you got enough money, I mean, if you got the wherewithal to do that, you could do something else to make your money. You don't have to help keep your fellow man down, help the archons continue to breed negativity so that they can feed off of our energy, because that's what they use it for. All the narcissism and the uh, all of that stuff that they do, it keeps that negativity going because those interdimensional beings feed off of that negative energy. They are literally using the masses as a battery. They told y'all that in the Matrix. And yet these people are so busy chasing a dollar that they're willing to go for it anyway. Yep, they are harvesting loose. You're exactly right. Yes, yes, sir. Absolutely. And they exactly promoting negative stereotypes, keeping racism going, keeping classism going, all of those kinds of things. And the bottom line is, whatever color you are, by the time you get to millionaire status, you're supposed to know how to act and carry yourself on the planet. You don't have no more excuse for behaving in those harsh, awful ways, and especially loud and proud out in public. If you're gonna be a donkey, be one quietly in private. Oh yeah, that's what children's movies will tell you the truth all the time. And Monsters Inc. They definitely, yeah, they were harvesting emotions. And the children's emotions, because the children were so close to the other side of the veil, they really wanted the children's emotions because they were purer and richer. But yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, I definitely think and if you haven't, I'm gonna definitely talk about it just so I can link the video. But that video from Astral Legends that was talking about that with the harvesting the energy and the, yeah, and again, I've been to a few smaller concerts, but never like anything super major. It was like I've been to like a couple country music concerts and jazz or um, small venue type shows. I don't like crowds enough to be in big concert venues. And now I'm grateful that I didn't, because you never know when something gonna pop off in there. But even if it doesn't, they were talking about how the artist basically is channeling these entities and working the crowd up. They create this trance environment and they are literally harvesting the energy off of these people that go to these concerts, and the people are spending uh, but didn't y'all really think that something was going on with it when they had uh Beyonce had people paying $2,000 for a concert ticket? I'm like, what? I don't dislike her music, but to be perfectly honest with you, even if the show was free 99, I'm not even sure I'd go to the next city over to see her. I know they're good and well. There's no way I would jump on a plane and pay nobody $2,000 to see her. But people are so worked up into that they're willing to do that instead of paying these people to go line up so that they can tap a vein and let these vampires feed off of them for 2 hours. Crazy. Anyway, you know what? We done been on here almost 2 hours. I said let the people feed off of that negative energy for almost 2 hours. We done rocked out here and had such a good time. I didn't realize we coming up close to 2 hours here. I do want to pull just a couple cards, see if we can get a message for us on the way out the door here. Cause let me see what we got. Oh, you know what? I think I am gonna pull a Metatron card and a Yeshua card. Oh, let me see. All right, we had Capricorn here. You embody the essence of hard work and responsibility. It propels you towards your goals. Galaxy, your experiences are shaped by your thoughts, emotions, intentions. Embrace your power, for you are the designer of your own cosmic journey. Oh, and Mercury, your words carry the potential to inspire, heal, and illuminate the minds and hearts of those around you. Use this gift with intention and authenticity. Wow, wow, wow. All right, now let's see over here. Cause cool. I'm glad you like purple because, like I say, I got my fair share of it. I forced myself to get other colors in the mix too, but yeah, I got quite a lot of purple in there, and that was something from the other day. I put the card in upside down. Yeah, purple and gold. Love it. We're gonna get an Akashic card here too. Yeah, yeah. I've been told. Well, I used to have a purple aura. I don't know what it is now. I don't see auras, but yeah. Okay. All right. We got somebody's carrying some guilt and shame, But I mean, those are cycles that we have to deal with. It says you carried the burden for long enough or for too long. It's time to release the guilt you've placed on yourself and start a new chapter in your life. Set a new goal and begin taking action toward happiness. See it through. You don't always finish what you start and then talk boldly badly to yourself because of it. Break the karmic pattern by seeing a project through to the end and then be proud of what you accomplished. Yeah, that part. And miracles. You're being asked to pay extra close attention to all the big and small miracles that have already occurred in your life and also to those that are currently occurring and are still to come. Miracles surround you. Be on the lookout for them. Honestly, I think that's good, Ryan, to a degree. Because it's gonna change. I don't think anybody ever keeps the same. There's your aura can change colors, but if your chakras are balanced, you probably will have more than one color in there. I would imagine. Yeah, unless you get so balanced that you wind up with a white aura, which I mean, I guess it could happen. But we got tethered and caged, break free. Joseph is here with fathering and responsibility. Faith, find holiness within. And then faith over fear, you can cope. I think this is the one that we're being called to read, but I'm going to get the Metatron card first. I'm only going to read one of each because we'll be here half the night with with too many of them. And I'm not quite sure why it takes these things so long to upload. Last night, the live I did, it took 14 hours for that thing to finally post to the channel. So I have no idea when this is actually going to upload, but we'll see. Oh, wow. We had love over here with relationships and harmony, white, purity, and innocence. Do I want that? Let me see what else comes out. Akashic Records, evaluation and review. And red, yeah. Let's see. I think it's going to be love and faith. Those two will work. So 41. The story of Jesus calming the storm is well known. It is said that as the storm unexpectedly arrived, the frightened disciples woke Jesus from his sleep for fear of being drowned, but after he calmed the wind and waves, he rebuked them for having little faith. At first glance, this may seem insensitive. They were frightened, so why were they chastised? However, what was really being demonstrated was tough love to teach them that their fear was bigger than their faith, and it was that which was the bigger problem rather than the raging sea. Jesus was reminding them of the immense power, resourcefulness, and capability within themselves, which is amplified when we stay connected to God, who never leaves us. Well, because it is us, but that's neither here nor there. When we remember this fact, we have less reason to worry and fret because we understand we are divinely guided and always helped. Think about storms that have arrived in your life and how you have handled them. Were you able to trust and have faith, or did you panic and allow fear to dictate how you responded? We must remember also that if we feed fear, it grows and can make anything worse. Sometimes we can spend days worrying over what may happen rather than working toward creating a better timeline. It is human to be afraid, and at all times we all are. But do we allow it to control and thwart us? Or do we rise above it and reorient back to the bedrock of our lives, which should be faith, knowing we can cope? Do we truly believe and trust that we will be led to where we're meant to be and that we will be shown what we need to see? Creating what ifs and focusing on what is amiss can also weaken our mental state over time. Instead, we're asked to be peaceful, be the peaceful eye of the storm, and not add to the drama or difficulty, even if others around us are in panic. We will be given the strength to cope with anything that life throws at us, including, for example, divorce, illness, grief, trauma, or any hardship. God walks beside us throughout it all and is never truly asleep. Also, know that this too will pass. Times may be rocky and upsetting, but better days will come. Build up a memory bank also of the times you have faced your fears and survived, flourishing even when you thought you would not, when help came from nowhere after your prayers were heard. It is easy to have faith when life is easy, but when times get tough, this is when we can truly put it into practice rather than abandon what we stand for and believe in. The miracle of calming the waters and wind also feels symbolic of us being able to balance our emotions, water, and our thoughts, air, to be masters of our own ship, realizing that when we harmonize our inner state, this will be reflected in what will manifest externally. We can create calm waters or raging seas. Feeding our fear or feeding our faith is a choice we get to make. It takes practice to respond from a place of assuredness and strength, helped each time by the cumulative effect of choosing faith over fear. So build up your divine, knowing that all is well and that you are equipped for any eventuality, unexpected or planned in your life. It says seek to build up. Yeah. Oh, okay. I'm glad that does make sense to you, Elias. And let's see. We've got love here. Card number 6 links to the planet Venus, the planet of love, harmony, and beauty. Venus also links to the goddess energy of fertility, sexuality, and victory. How do you love and how are you loved? When pulled, this card typically focuses on your relationship with a partner, although it can also apply to non romantic relationships, such as with a parent or other loved one. We know that a loving bond with another, when expressed in its highest form, is like the rose in full bloom pictured in this card, a beautiful, sacred thing. However, just like the rose, love is delicate and needs to be handled with care. It needs time, attention, and gentleness for you to benefit from its full glory and wonder. Love, once seeded, can weather any storm as long as work and energy from both sides are put into it. Consider the state of your own relationship. Is it one that is based on mutual love and consideration, or is it wilting from neglect, disinterest, or abandonment? Ask yourself, when was the last time I did something for my partner? And when was the last time they did something for you? It can be something practical or emotional. Love can be expressed in many ways, but it needs to be demonstrated and felt in some shape or form. Touching each other, a moment's embrace, cooking a nourishing meal, offering help and assistance, or just giving each other your time and full attention as well as the gift of your presence. Maybe you have forgotten what it is to be truly loved, wanted, and truly connected to someone. Maybe you've never been shown love or had no role model to inspire you. Bye bye, Elias. Have a good evening. Thank you for joining. And yet, love is within us all. It is always there, an energy that is freely available if we break down our walls of resistance and realize that what we give out, we get back. Like attracts like, and any test or challenge in love is there to make us question, learn, and appreciate who we are and what we feel we deserve. What we feel we deserve, we will receive back. So if you feel taken for granted or underappreciated, ask yourself why you've allowed this to happen. Then ask Metatron to help heal this pattern within you. It is a common one that many of us are wounded by. It stems from not loving ourselves enough and therefore not expecting much in return. Think of how you demonstrate your love, what you expect from it, and what you truly believe it is its highest expression and form. From young, passionate love to love that has survived decades of life experience, The principles remain the same. Seek an expression of the love that is the source of all creation. A state of being as natural as breathing, a state of being as natural as breathing in and out. Allow love to grow now in your heart and in your relationships. It is there for all. No one is excluded from its promise and beauty. So yeah, that is that, folks. And I think on that end, I'm going to close it for this evening. Thank you so much for joining me. I enjoyed it so very much, and I definitely look forward to doing this again. I'm not sure if we're going to have a midweek live. I'm thinking about maybe Wednesday, but for sure we'll be back on it on the weekend as well. Good night to you, Antoine. Good night, Dr. Strange Doom. Good night, everyone. Thank you again. Thank you. Thank you. Peace and blessings to you. I love you. Namaste. Pardon. Thank you, Raya. And I enjoyed having you here. Thank you, Unique Goddess. You take care too. Good night, everyone. Love you.